The left has no answer for it. At the same time, the right is now divided on Israel, on the subject of Israel. There is this division happening within the MAGA movement. You're surely aware of it. I happened upon Rabbi Jerusalem, another one, again, a religious man, a Jew who has the very blindness that the Apostle Paul described. A Jewish rabbi who, as it is written in Romans chapter 11, blindness has happened to them in part until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. And while this man is blind to the fact that Messiah came, I was amazed, I was in awe listening to him. His observations about the Torah and all of the warnings of God to the covenant people, should they abandon the covenant. And in it, he was elaborating on this turn of events for New York City. New York has just elected a Shiite, actual 12er, that is the Iranian flavor of militant Islam. They've actually elected as their mayor a man who's never had a job, in his 30s, a rich kid who has only promises, the promises of communism. People have demonstrated, the population of New York City has demonstrated, that they made an emotional choice, not a factual choice, but purely emotional. 84% of the women in New York City voted for the Shiites, Muslim, in the city that has the largest Jewish population outside of Tel Aviv, outside of Israel, the largest population. And I was amazed as I listened to Rabbi elaborate on this all playing into Yahweh's plan to ultimately bring them all back to Israel. And I don't deny that. I don't doubt it. I remind you, dear Christian, take a stand, know who you are, know what you believe. For biblical reasons, be biblical. But at the same time, I tell you, fret not thyself because of evildoers. Don't get too worked up. Fret not. Psalm 37, the verbs of Psalm 37 help me much when I see people doing crazy things. Leftist Jews electing militant Islamists. Interesting days. They're difficult people. Moses knows that better than anybody. Moses has been through a lot. By the time we come to chapter 32, Moses, I wonder if he has any hair left. There is no indication that he pulls it out, but he sure does face plants a lot in the sand. He sure has to throw himself before the Lord in prayer for these people. And once again, I want to remind you, this is the people who saw the power of God rescue them from slavery in Egypt and followed the pillar of cloud by day, pillar of fire by night in their journey through the wilderness, and come to the promised land, but refuse to trust that same God to give them victory, taking the land of Canaan. They received deliverance. They saw what Yahweh did to the armies of the greatest civilization on earth at that time. And they come to the land of Canaan and they refuse in their fear. Well, Moses is a little jumpy. He's got a little bit of a hair trigger now. He's like ready to flip out. And I agree with Moses as he describes himself as the meekest man on earth. He's put up with a lot. An old man who knows he's only days away from dying gets to experience this event. Chapter 32, verse 1. Now the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad had an exceedingly large number of livestock. And they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, that it was indeed a place suitable for livestock. So the sons of Gad and the sons of Reuben came and spoke to Moses and to Eleazar the priest and to the leaders of the congregation, saying, Ataroth, Dibon, Jazer, Nimrah, Heshbon, Elilah, Sebam, Nebo, and beyond. The land which Yahweh struck before the congregation of Israel is a land for livestock. And your servants have livestock. And they said, if we have found favor in your sight, Let this land be given to your servants as a possession. Do not take us across the Jordan. Does that sound like something Moses has already dealt with? It is. And he has a reaction to it. You might consider it an overreaction. I don't think so. I think Moses knows all that is at stake, and there's so much at stake. He has to factor that in. That factors into his response. Are you familiar with a proverb in Proverbs chapter 18 that says that he that answers a matter before he hears it, to him it is folly. Now come on, maybe you've done that with your kids. You ever react and you haven't really actually got the whole story? I've done it. Even knowing that verse and trying not to do that, I still am prone to it. Well, I did it just last week. Let me tell you about it. I had announced last Sunday that Tristan, who led our worship this morning, was all done. He quit. He moved on. God had called him to Bangor, to that new church plant. I was aware of that reality, that the Lord had called him, and he was committed to joining his brother-in-law over there. So when I received the text, dated October 28th, that had the final sentence, do you have an idea, preference, who can take our Sunday night worship? Well, I read in my expectation in ignoring the sentence before it. This is after me last week patronizing him, I think 3 times, all 3 services, because when I was his age, I did all the services and all the music. He asked me on Monday, good morning, Ken, before I make set list for Sunday night this week, I wanted to confirm with you if my crew's good to presume evening worship or if you're going to start doing it. Either way, God be glorified. Which made me go back and read the text from the week before. And the first sentence says, hey, Ken, I'm doing Sunday morning worship for Josh because of illness, and then, K-Park worship, period. Do you have a preference for who can take our Sunday night worship? There wasn't anything about, I'm moving on. Wasn't in there. So I had to write back. Oh, I thought you were telling me you were done. Now that I look at the last text, I wonder where I got that idea. He said, still happy to serve and worship junior high, K-Park, till impossible. And I said, well, I guess I read into your text what I was expecting. Yeah, please keep doing Sunday nights. People are following your lead, and it's good. But surely you've done that. You answered something before you've heard it, jumped to conclusions. It may be what Moses did. But then again, Moses realizes how much is at stake. So when they come to him, let me try to describe it. By the way, you can look it up on a satellite map. If you look at the land of Israel, and it's longer than it is wide, it's a narrow strip of land, it's kind of divided right down the center by this little stripe of water, that is the Jordan River, which flows first from up in Dan, up nearer Mount Hermon. It flows down into Galilee. Galilee is the lowest freshwater lake on earth, 650 feet or so below sea level. So it's a significant valley. It's the Rift Valley, the intersection of the continents, man, this great North African rift, Euro-African rift. It goes all the way from Europe right down into North Africa. And Galilee is part of that. And from Galilee, the Jordan trickles down into what we call the Dead Sea. Everything on the east side, everything that's, when you're looking at the map, on the right side of the Jordan, is particularly up near Galilee, what you hear about in the news in your modern age as the Golan Heights. Golan. Israel took in this last significant war with its Arab enemies and have kept it ever since. So when you look at it, imagine going from Galilee, which is down there really low, 650 feet below sea level, it all slopes up. It's a very steady slope. But even on most of your satellite maps, you'll see it's very green. It's a real green patch of land that goes all the way up to the highest point, which is on the Syrian border now. But early modern state of Israel, 1940s and 50s, even through the 60s, farming or any attempted industry down there on the lake at Galilee, they were always within shot of the Syrians who held that high ground. They always had the high ground, the Golan, and it was easier to shoot down. Imagine trying to farm down along the shore of Galilee with this constant artillery. But man, they were dedicated, they were committed. They dug trenches, and they had to live in trenches, going from the chicken barn back to the house. Whatever enterprise they had to live in trenches to do it until they took it, and they're not going to give it back. But that, which is today referred to as the Golan, is situated in such a place and facing just the right direction to receive a significant amount of moisture in the air. Consequently, it's beautiful. It actually is very beautiful, and it is perfect for grazing cattle. It's perfect for that. It is a region that in the Old Testament, like in the Psalms, the term, like in Psalm 22, David speaking prophetically of Messiah, describes Messiah surrounded by bulls, strong bulls of Bashan. The term Bashan, this was that region. There was a little kingdom up there called the Kingdom of Bashan, and its king, Og and Sihon, there were a couple of giant kings. Og, we're given the dimensions of his bed, not his personal dimensions, but he had an iron bed to accommodate him. Giants were a reality in the land of promise, and Og was one of them. He's the only one in biblical record that was actually a king. But his bed is 14 feet long. That does give you a hint at the mass of the giant. Giants still exist today. People have a hard time with the concept of a giant. Nevertheless, not only was there a Goliath, there were the sons of what they refer to, in fact, Og was one of the Rephidim, the giants. We have the genetic capacity for it still to this day. I was listening yesterday about some guy in the NFL who's now 7'9" and, active, skillful enough of an athlete to be in that game. It's not unusual in modern history for there to be 8-foot people, not just Guinness Book, not just circus people, not just people suffering from acromegaly and a pituitary gland, that within the genetics of humanity. There are some giants in our church here, in our fellowship. Tall, skinny giants. And we've got front door issues. The very front doors. Man, we must have got a bargain on those doors, because the guys that are over 6'8" have to duck under them, and anybody over 6'4" has to watch out for the hydraulic arm that closes the door. It'll skin the top of your head. So we're not real giant friendly, unfortunately. We're going to work on this. But giants existed. Og was among them, the land of Bashan. Anything from Bashan, anything from that slope that is today called the Golan, was called, it became an expression because it was always big and well fed. The cattle up there were happy cows. So bulls of Bashan is an expression of one big jack bull. However, the prophet Amos uses the term in a most offensive way to the women of the northern kingdom when he rebukes them by the Holy Spirit and calls them, brace yourselves, women, calls them cows of Bashan. It was not intended to be a compliment. It was a statement about their being absolutely materialistic and overfed, unconcerned heifers. So Bashan. Bashan is the region that the tribe of Reuben and Gad, and you'll see later another tribe develops, that's the half-tribe of Manasseh. They see it and they go, this is perfect for what we do. They haven't even entered the promised land yet, but they have seen what they believe will suit them as herdsmen. So they come to Moses with their presentation. And the last thing they said was, do not take us across Jordan. Moses kind of flips, verse 6. Moses said to the sons of Gad and to the sons of Reuben, shall your brothers go to war while you yourselves sit here? Now why are you discouraging the sons of Israel from crossing over into the land which Yahweh has given them? That is what your fathers did. I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. Indeed, they went up into the valley of Eshcol, saw the land, and they discouraged the sons of Israel, so that they did not go into the land which Yahweh had given them. So Yahweh's anger burned in that day, and he swore an oath, saying, none of the men who came up from Egypt, from 20 years old and upward, shall see the land which I swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, for they did not follow me fully. So Moses went off on them, because those men did not follow him, Yahweh, fully. And then verse 12, he said, except Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and Joshua, the son of Nun, for they have followed Yahweh fully. Now, before reading on the rest of Moses' rant, because he's right, let's consider the concept of not following Yahweh fully. A half-hearted effort. There are many. You guys know that. In fact, church is made up of them. People who have made some arrangement where they've drawn certain lines, and this is how far they'll go in their commitment to Christ. There are many who are just happy to be saved. Good enough, I'm saved. I believe Christ died for my sins. I believe he's made a way for me to live in heaven forever. Good enough. And contrast it with those who will follow the Lord fully. Those who would go in and take the land, as it were. Well, verse 13, Moses goes on with his rant. So Yahweh's anger burned against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness 40 years, until the entire generation of those who had done evil in the sight of Yahweh was brought to an end. Now will you've risen up in your father's place, a brood of sinful men, to add still more to the burning anger of Yahweh against Israel. For if you turn away from following him, he will once more abandon them in the wilderness, and you will destroy this people. Now, Moses is not wrong. He's not wrong. There's a lot at stake here. However, when he gets the rest of the story, and it comes in verse 16, then they came near to him and said, we will build here sheepfolds for our livestock and cities for our little ones, but we ourselves will be armed, ready to go before the sons of Israel until we have brought them to their place, and our little ones live in the fortified cities because of the inhabitants of the land. We will not return to our homes until every one of the sons of Israel has possessed his inheritance. We will not have an inheritance with them on the other side of the Jordan and beyond, because our inheritance has fallen to us on this side of the Jordan east. So the representatives of the tribe, the tribal elders of Reuben and Gad and half-tribe of Manasseh, say, look, we're in for the fight. We'll go. We will not. They had conquered the fortified cities over there. They said, we'll rebuild these city walls. Our families will live in them. We got to build some sheepfolds, and we got to build places to keep the cattle, but we'll go. We're in. We're all the way in. Now, again, there's some debate among the scholars with regard to, was this a good move or not? Subject to debate, but I'll show you Moses' reaction. Moses accepts this. Yahweh is not angry at them. Now, I question whether or not they're, well, you guys remember, let's make a deal. Are they settling for what they've seen instead of going for what's behind door number 2? Because God has described the land of promise. The promised land is a good land. It's got everything you need. It's a land that flows with milk and honey. And indeed it is. It's a land that produces food. I think an argument can be made that they're settling. They haven't even been there. But they do have God's promise. They have the testimony of Joshua and Caleb. They've been told. But they like it over there. This arrangement is okay with God, and Moses responds. Verse 20. So Moses said to them, if, and that's a big if, I'm sure he shook his finger, if you will do this, if you will arm yourselves before Yahweh for the war, and all of you armed men cross over the Jordan before Yahweh until he has dispossessed his enemies from before him, and the land is subdued before Yahweh. Then afterward you shall return and be free of obligation toward Yahweh and toward Israel, and this land shall be yours for a possession before Yahweh. So if you do what you say, he tells the tribal elders from Reuben, Gad, and half tribe of Manasseh. And why Manasseh split in half, we're not told, but apparently it was here at this point. Half of the tribe following one elder said, we're going to stay over here and raise cattle. But we'll go help you take that land. Moses said to them, if you do what you say, if you do what you have said, if you will keep this vow, then so be it. Can I point something else out to you? The 21st verse, it says that before Yahweh, until he has dispossessed his enemies from before him. The Canaanites that they're about to invade, go to war with, are identified as Yahweh's enemies. Now, would you please give some thought to that for just a moment? To being the enemy of God. It's a dreadful thought, actually, isn't it? Being on the wrong side of the universe, being enemies with God. Well, such were all of us, even in our childhood, according to the Scripture, according to Ephesians chapter 2. Ephesians chapter 2, the Apostle Paul describes us as being on a course for hell, caught in a current, under the influence of the prince of the power of the air. He said we were children of disobedience, even as others. But God, Ephesians 2:4, it pivots on the words, but God, who is rich in mercy, with a great love wherewith he has loved us, while we were dead in sins. He made us alive, quickened us, Old English. He made us alive and seated us positionally with Christ. And he did this to put his grace on display. We were enemies. I don't know if you realize that. I don't know if you thought. I don't know what you thought. Like, I'm a pretty decent person. Most people think that. I'm not perfect. I'm basically a good person. That shows how broke our meter is. Because we know other people that are worse than us. So we comfort ourselves, but we've not actually seen God and know what perfection is. And if we did, we'd go, woe is me. I'm a mess. I'm a sinner. I'm a lawbreaker. I'm a criminal in God's universe. I'm in trouble. That confrontation has to happen to every one of us. Maybe you thought, well, I'm not a bad person. I'm really not a bad person. Why? By human standards, maybe you're not. But by the God standard, we all are. You guys, we are a mess. Enemies, rebels. We're a rogue species. We need to be saved. You know that? You get that? It's not like you think that Jesus Christ comes to just make you a little better. No. He's not like a little upgrade to you. That's not the deal. You guys, we are a mess. Rebels in God's universe, and we need salvation. We need to be saved. Yeah, he changes us. But don't think for 1 minute that just receiving Christ is just going to be an upgrade for you. Enemies of Yahweh, in desperate need of Yahshua. That's who we were. And that's who some of you may still be. You got to have that crisis of realizing, man, I need to fall upon the rock and be broken, the words of Jesus Christ. Enemies of Yahweh. So that's who the Canaanites are. Enemies of Yahweh. So Moses said, if you'll do that, all right, fine. If you'll do that, look at verse 23. But if you will not do so, behold, he said, you have sinned against Yahweh, and be sure your sin will find you out. What does that mean? Your sin will catch up with you, man. It's an irony that whatever we do gets done to us. You guys all know that, right? It's a painful thing that we seldom ever recognize when it's done to us that we had done this to others. In the scriptures, you get Jacob taking advantage of his father's inability to see, capitalizing on that to get the blessing that was going to go to his brother, right? You know that story. What happens? Later, his father-in-law capitalizes on his inability to see in the dark night of the honeymoon, and he consummates a marriage to the sister that he wasn't trying to marry. What he did had been done to him. Joseph, remember Joseph's brothers, the patriarch, chapter 37 of Genesis. They see him come and they go, oh, comes the family spy, the family narc. They thought he was a spy. They threw him into a pit. What happens to Joseph's brothers down in Egypt? They're treated as spies by Joseph and thrown into a dungeon. It's just a reality that what we do gets done to us. We sow and we reap. It is a reality. And Moses said, you be sure your sin will find you out. Let's talk about this. What sin? What sin was he talking about? You don't keep your promise. If you don't do, so listen, we have a tendency in modern culture to think of sin as only doing the bad things that we're not supposed to do. And we think, if I quit doing the bad thing, I'm going to be good. And we forget that there are other things that we're supposed to do. So sin is not just committing what is forbidden. Sin is also omitting what is commanded. All right, chew on that for a second. We're so messed up, we think we're doing good if we quit drinking. Or we think, man, I'm doing good. And it's right, you should quit drinking. We should quit stealing. Most of the people in this congregation who ever stole to feed a drug habit. Quitting stealing, good thing. That's good. But that's not where you stop. All right, more about that in a minute. Let me finish this. I'm going to come back to this sin of omission. And Moses said, if you will not do so, if you will not keep your promise. Vows are serious, ladies and gentlemen. God expects us to keep our promises. God expects us to keep our marriage vows. He holds us to them. To fail to keep them. And this is the deal. Modern culture is like, whatever. I was really young when I made that promise. When I made those vows. I'm a totally different person now. As if that exempts you. Why? I'm just completely different. You are still bound by the vows you made in the sight of God. You and me, we're bound. Can't act like we're unbound. So, all right, verse 23, but if you will not do so, behold, you have sinned against Yahweh. Be sure your sin will find you out. Build yourselves cities for your little ones, sheepfolds for your sheep. Do what you have promised. And the sons of Gad and the sons of Reuben spoke to Moses, saying, your servants will do just as my Lord commands. Our little ones, our wives, our livestock, and our cattle shall remain there in the cities of Gilead. But your servants, everyone who is armed for war, will cross over in the presence of Yahweh to battle, just as my Lord says. So Moses gave a commandment, that is a command concerning them to Eleazar the priest, and to Joshua the son of Nun, and to the heads of the fathers' households, and to the tribes of the sons of Israel. And Moses said to them, if, and that's the biggest word in what Moses says, if the sons of Gad and the sons of Reuben, everyone who is armed for battle will cross with you over the Jordan, in the presence of Yahweh, and in the land is subdued before you, then you shall give them the land of Gilead for a possession. But if they will not cross over with you armed, they shall have possessions among you in the land of Canaan. The sons of Gad and the sons of Reuben answered, saying, as Yahweh has said to your servants, so we will do. We ourselves will cross over in the presence of Yahweh into the land of Canaan, and the possession of our inheritance shall remain with us across the Jordan. So Moses gave to them, to the sons of Gad and the sons of Reuben, to the half-tribe of Joseph's son Manasseh, the kingdom of Sihon, the king of the Amorites, and the kingdom of Og, the king of Bashan. Land with its cities, with their territories, the cities of the surrounding land. The sons of Gad built Dibon and Ataroth and Aroer and Atroth-Shaphan and Jazer and Jogbehah and Beth-Nirmah and Beth-Haran as fortified cities and sheepfolds for sheep. The sons of Reuben built Heshbon and Elilah and Kiriathim and Nebo and Baal-Meon, and their names being changed, and Sibmah. And they gave other names to the cities which they built. And the sons of Machir, the sons of Manasseh, went to Gilead and took it, dispossessed the Amorites who were in it. So Moses gave Gilead to Machir, the son of Manasseh, and he lived in it. And Jair, the son of Manasseh, went and took its towns and called them Havoth-Jair. And Nobah went and took Kenath and its towns and called it Nobah, after his own name. So there's that little piece of history, okay? Now can I talk about the relevance of this history to you and me, if I may? It is history. The Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 informs the Corinthians that everything that happened to them happened as examples to us, that there are lessons in that history for us. Would you join me in the New Testament, in the few minutes we've got left, in the chapter 4 of Ephesians? Ephesians chapter 4, please. Let me point something out to you. The Apostle Paul, he writes a lot of these epistles in the New Testament, and he has a pattern that he seldom ever sways from. He seldom deviates from this pattern. The pattern of Paul's letters are, first, he tells us all that God has done for us, who God is, talks about the greatness of Christ and the gospel. Then he pivots. Usually he pivots on the word therefore. And he'll say, all right, so since God has done all that for us, here's what we should be doing and not doing. So the same Apostle Paul that will say, okay, now we need to put off the unfruitful works of darkness, and we need to put on the armor of light. We need to put off and put on. Putting off and putting on section usually, gives us the stuff that we ought to be doing and not doing. But listen, it's both. It's not just, here's the stuff you all need to quit doing. He will say, quit doing that, stop that, and now instead do this. It's all this instead. All right, in other words, you don't take off dirty clothes and walk around naked. You put on clean clothes. So it is with your lifestyle. You don't just take off, aspects of your lifestyle that really need to go and stand around doing nothing, being naked. You put on other things. One of the best examples is here in Ephesians. Actually, I will read you a section of chapter 4. But let me also point out to you what he said in Ephesians chapter 5. When he says, for example, in verse 18, Ephesians 5:18, all you guys from CRD, you know this one. Do not get drunk with wine, for that is dissipation, but be filled with the Spirit. He does this instead thing. He says, stop getting drunk on wine. And that's not all he says. He says, stop getting drunk on wine, which is dissipation. I had to look up dissipation. I really never paid attention to what dissipation means. You know what it actually means? Wasteful. The Old English dictionary gives us prodigality. Prodigal. What's prodigal mean? Wasteful. Prodigality. Prodigality and wastefulness. What are we wasting when we're drunk? Well, besides opportunity, relationships, everything else, we waste brain cells and health. We damage our organs. It's dissipation. It's wasting. Stop doing it. Stop getting drunk. Turn your back on it. And drunkenness is one of those things you measure in degree, too. I personally recommend a lifestyle of total abstinence from alcohol, unless you're one of those rare people who can have a glass of wine and not the bottle. Most of us are not those people. Those are higher class folk than us. We're us, you guys. And if we drink, someone's going to get hurt. I know who I am. Maybe I'm not speaking for you and you're all offended. Oh, well. You're still welcome to hang out with us. Most of us are the extremists who cannot have a beer, will have a keg. It may start off as a beer, but it'll grow until we've ruined every relationship. It's dissipation. It makes you stupid. Doesn't it? It does not make you a better father, doesn't make you a better husband, won't make you a better friend, won't make you a better driver, will not make you a better dancer or comedian or fighter. Alcohol only makes a fool out of you. So he doesn't just say, quit that. He says, but instead of that, be filled with the Spirit. He's really cool about this instead of thing. So back in chapter 4, look at this. I'll start at verse 17. This is Paul writing in the New Testament. He said, therefore, this I say. This is what I'm there for. He's been going on and on about who God is and all that God's done for us. And he goes, therefore, this I say and testify in the Lord, that you walk no longer as the Gentiles also walk in the futility of their mind, being darkened in their mind, alienated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them, because of the hardness of their heart. And they, having become callous, have given themselves over to sensuality for the practice of every kind of impurity with greediness. But you did not learn Christ in this way. Paul is writing to Gentiles, Christians who are surrounded by Greco-Roman hedonism. They invented the term, one of their philosophers. And he said, you got to live different. He said in verse 20, but you did not learn Christ in this way. If indeed you heard him and were taught in him, just as the truth is in Jesus, to lay aside in reference to your former conduct the old man, which is being corrupt in accordance with the lusts of deceit, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind. Put on the new man, which in the likeness of God has been created in righteousness and holiness of the truth. Therefore, laying aside falsehood, speak truth, each one of you with his neighbor, for we're members of one another. So there he starts it, and he goes, don't just stop lying. And now speak the truth, everyone, to his neighbor. He doesn't say, stop doing the don't. He calls us to do the do. Verse 26, be angry, all right, yet do not sin. Do not let the sun go down in your anger. Be angry, but don't sin in it, and don't stay angry. And do not give the devil an opportunity. He who steals must steal no longer. And then there's a comma. But rather, what is the opposite of stealing? Well, it's not just giving, because you can steal and give. The opposite of stealing is earning and then giving. There's no room for Robin Hood here. But rather, he must labor performing something with his own hands, what is good, so that he'll have something to share with one who has need. So, you guys, you understand, you don't just quit stealing. Now you practice giving after you've earned it. Go work, earn, and help somebody out. It's the exact opposite, isn't it? How about verse 29? Let no unwholesome word proceed out of your mouth. What does that mean, unwholesome? Just don't let gross, dirty, scandalous stuff come out of your mouth. You got to quit with them F-bombs or F-word substitutes. We're not training our kids good if we use F-word substitutes. We shouldn't do it. Let no unwholesome word proceed out of your mouth. All right, listen, I know somebody right now is going, well, at least it's not as bad as the F-word. True. But we don't have to settle for it. At least it's not as bad, do we? Because somebody's thinking, listen, man, I come a long ways just to say flippin', that flippin' thing. I know, I commend you. But don't stop there. Don't stop there. Let no unwholesome word proceed out of your mouth, but only such a word as is good for building up what is needed, so that it will give grace to those who hear. So you can walk around verbally vomiting on people, or we can actually go through our day helping each other with words, that beautiful gift of speech. We can actually make people smarter or encourage all the things we can do with that gift. And he says in verse 30, don't grieve the Holy Spirit of God by whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. What he's suggesting is that our use of speech grieves the Holy Spirit when we're doing it wrong. You understand that? Let all bitterness and anger and wrath and shouting and slander be put away from you, along with all malice. Instead, so he doesn't say quit being all bitter and angry and wrathful, shouting and slandering. He says, but instead be kind to one another, tenderhearted, graciously forgiving each other, just as God in Christ also has graciously forgiven you. So you guys get this, what I'm saying to you? In the same way, Moses said it would be a sin for those 2.5 tribes to not do what they said. It would be a sin of omission. They would be omitting the good that God has called them to, bailing on their brothers. In the same way, we can be guilty of omitting the good that we should do. Don't quit with, hey, I quit saying the F word. Go on, go further, and start saying good words that lift people. Use the gift of speech in such a way as to help somebody out. We can. Man, us men are worse than you ladies. I don't know. Well, in person. Let's do it this way. In person. Ladies say really rotten things about other people. Not in person. Men, we're the terrible about. And I'm oh, Lord help me. I got to grow. Because we'll go, dude, you're fat. And the guys will go, I know. You think? Oh, we're pretty blunt. We're, and granted, we're thicker skinned. We don't walk around going, oh, we shouldn't as men. That sound should not come out of you unless you're mocking. Ever. I never. You're supposed to be a man. Man up. But still, that don't mean we got to be cruel. That don't mean we got to be cruel to each other. I'm guilty, man. I asked the Lord to help me out. One of my buddies, I hadn't seen him for a while. Shaking his hand, I go, man, God's been good to you. I see you're eating good. And he goes, well, thank you for noticing. Point made. Point made. I'm like, touche. That was stupid of me. I did a lot of stupid things. I'm prone to it. Lord have mercy. I like taking still shots of myself. I'll look at the video and just see me lean and bulge. Click, screenshot. That's my motivator right now. I mock myself. I share it. Look at this. Look at his gut. Look at this food baby the guy showed up with. All right? Don't do that to each other. We shouldn't do that to each other. Yeah, that's right. Whoever took that picture of me, that one particular lady, she knows who she is, that took that picture of me right after leaving the buffet. As I recall, I was wearing this very same shirt, not a lot of slack in it, and it was maxed out. It was hysterical. Again, it's a food baby. I'm not that fat. I was full. You get the concept? I'll belabor it no longer. You and I, we should grow to the point where we're not just focused on, God help me to stop beating my wife. Don't just stop there. Now go on to actually protect her and love her and build her up with your words. Don't just quit stealing. Commence earning and giving. It's not enough for us to just stop doing the don'ts. We must move on to do the do's. Dost thou dig this? Diggest thou what I am laying out to you today? Charles Spurgeon, they call him a prince of preachers. He has this quote about somebody who goes, I don't do all these wrong things. He said, a do-nothing professor is merely a nominal church member. A nominal member is a real hindrance. He neither contributes, nor prays, nor works, nor agonizes for souls, nor takes any part in Christian service. And yet he partakes of all the privileges of the church. Is this fair? What is the use of him? He sits and hears and sometimes sleeps under the sermon. That is all. We got to be more than just a professor of I don't do those bad things. And there's no room for pride because all of us have been forgiven for all those bad things. All the bad stuff that we've done, we ask the Lord to forgive us. He cleanses us. As it is written, if we'll confess our sin, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sin and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. He does that. Once he's cleansed us, we can't go around bragging, can we, about how good we are? Because we got forgiven for all our crimes. We were let off the hook. Our crimes were forgiven. No room for boasting, us. No room for bragging about virtue. We were called to it. Can you receive it this morning? Can you actually receive what I'm telling you? We were called to do better than we think. Let me suggest one more thing to you, if I may. It creates a little discomfort, but the modern world is plagued with the availability of pornography. You got to be on guard, or your sons and daughters will be exposed to it. It's so available, and it messes people's minds up. Now, I'm sure everybody in here knows, the world of porn is not the place for a believer. It will totally twist your whole perspective of sexuality and God's plan for it. It's a mess. It's wrong. You're ripping yourself off. But it's not enough to just stop. Well, you should. Quit that. It's not that hard to cut off access and just stop looking at that trash. But what would be the instead of? So let me suggest to you, if you have been involved in any way in the exploitation of human sexuality, then you and I ought to be involved in helping people get free. If you as a man or a woman have ever spent a dime, if you ever spent $1 on porn, you ought to spend $1 on helping people get free. A program like Blessed Hope, where ladies are finding freedom and they're no longer being exploited because of their drug addiction. It's one thing to say, okay, I don't get drunk anymore. That's good. But if you spend money on that, I encourage you to spend money and invest in other men who at places like CRD are finding freedom. And you guys know, you're not, if you're focused on, I just don't want to get drunk anymore, you'll never succeed. But if you will focus on, I'm going to help men find freedom. I'm going to walk in that freedom. I'm going to be involved. You and I are those people that are either going to be in ministry or intoxicated. So we don't just quit doing this. Anybody that came to CRD that goes, I just want to be sober, okay? I just want to quit doing drugs. It's not enough. It's not. We were made for more than just quitting doing drugs. We were made for good works, which God before ordained that we should walk in them. You need to pass on this gospel that sets you free. You got to be out there and be involved with people. I can always tell who's going to totally bomb. I can always tell. When a guy goes through the basic, gets in transition, he's distanced from all the other guys. He's too cool for them now. He's got a job, he's got money again, and he's doomed if he's not involved with those guys who are just a little bit behind him and younger in the Lord, helping him. The guy who goes, I just want to be sober. I just don't want to be on heroin anymore. Oh, so you mean you just settle for a little bit of weed? You're doomed. And you look at some other guy and go, he has a beer with his pizza. You ain't him. You ain't him. I ain't him. And let's not even experiment and find out if we are him. So I'm urging you, everyone, that we should look to the Lord and say, what am I supposed to be doing with my life? Not just what am I not supposed to be doing. Not just what am I not supposed to be doing. Figure out what it is God's called you to turn your back on, and then figure out what is the instead of. If you have been involved with porn, you get free of it. Get free. And then help other people find freedom. Get involved with somebody that needs that same help. Get involved with a bro who's in need of you praying for him and helping him and reminding him. Whatever the instead of, figure out what the instead of. Don't do this, but instead do the other. Come on, let's stand together and we'll close with a prayer. Enough discomfort. Glad you came. Appreciate you listening. Father, I pray for all my friends gathered here today, and I ask that you please illuminate our understanding as to what this means. This piece of history has lessons for us, and I pray that you'd help us to receive them. Help us not to settle for less than what you got for us. And I pray, Lord, that you help us not to be guilty of sins of omission any more than we should be guilty of commissions, of prohibitions. Help us to grow. Help us not just be the church guy. Help us not to be just content with, I'm saved, I'm on my way to heaven, and we're going to live our own will between now and heaven. Help us, Lord, to realize you made us for more. I pray in the name of Christ. You bless our fellowship with each other. Please use us out there. It's crazy out there. You know that. Help us to bring some wisdom. Help us to bring some encouragement to the discouraged. Help us to bring some light to the darkness. In the name of Christ, pray all these things. Bless your people. Amen. Amen. Grace and peace.